There's a free trick that turns any pink hydrangea bush into a deep ocean blue, and any blue hydrangea bush into the softest rose pink, using nothing but 2 kitchen scraps you throw away every single morning. No fertilizer, no fancy bottle of color enhancer from the garden center, no $50 replacement plant. A retired nurse in coastal Massachusetts inherited 8 pink hydrangea bushes from the previous owner of her Cape Cod home in 2021. She wanted blue. The local nursery told her the only solution was to dig them all up and plant new blue varieties at $89 a bush. That was over $700 for plants she already owned. She refused. Instead, she started saving used coffee grounds from her morning pot, mixed them with shredded oak leaves from her yard, and worked a thin layer into the soil around each bush every 2 weeks. By the second summer, 6 of those 8 pink hydrangeas had transformed into the deepest sapphire blue blooms her neighbors had ever seen. Her total cost was $0. Her neighbor across the street, who had paid the nursery $712 to replace her own pink hydrangeas with blue ones, watched the new bushes bloom pale lavender by August, because nobody had told her the soil itself controlled the color. Hydrangeas are now the single most popular flowering shrub sold in American nurseries, with prices ranging from $25 for a small starter plant to over $100 for a mature specimen. Hydrangea sales have grown explosively over the last decade, especially in the past 5 years, and have become one of the highest revenue plant categories in the entire ornamental nursery business. The American consumer flower and shrub market generates over $40 billion annually, and hydrangeas alone account for hundreds of millions of dollars in retail sales every spring. Every garden center stocks them by the hundreds. Every landscape designer specifies them by default. Every magazine cover in May and June features them in coastal cottage photographs that sell the dream of a perfect summer garden. What no one selling those plants will tell you is that the color you see in the pot at the nursery is not permanent. It is not even genetic. It is a temporary chemical state determined entirely by the pH of the soil the plant is sitting in. The nursery has carefully maintained that soil at a specific acidity to produce the color you bought. The moment you plant that hydrangea in your own yard, the soil chemistry changes and so does the color, often within a single growing season. Pink becomes purple. Blue fades to muddy gray. Customers blame themselves. They go back to the nursery and buy another plant. The cycle continues, year after year, sale after sale, while the simplest 2 kitchen scrap trick in horticultural history quietly grows whatever color you want for free in your own backyard. This is the story of the most popular flowering shrub in America, the chemistry that turns it any color you choose, and the nursery industry that prays every single spring you never figure out how it actually works. Welcome to Forbidden Gardening. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are how this knowledge survives another generation. Here we dig up what the garden industry quietly buried. Let me take you back to where this story really begins. In 1736, a London cloth merchant named Peter Collinson received a wooden box from his friend John Bartram in the Pennsylvania colony. Inside was a packet of seeds from a strange flowering shrub Bartram had collected from the woods of North America. Collinson planted the seeds in his garden at Mill Hill outside London. 10 years later, he wrote in a letter, "My hydrangea, perhaps the first in England, flowered in August 1746. That single shrub, a wild hydrangea arborescens from a Pennsylvania forest, was the ancestor of every cultivated hydrangea, now sold in every nursery on earth." In 1753, the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus formally named the plant, taking the word from the Greek hydro for water and angion for vessel, because the seed pods looked like tiny water pitchers. But the strangest discovery came later, in the gardens of 19th century England and France. Aristocrats who imported new hydrangea varieties from Asia, brought back by Sir Joseph Banks from China in 1790, and by the German naturalist Philipp Franz von Siebold from Japan in the 1860s, began noticing something almost supernatural. The same hydrangea bush, when transplanted from one estate to another, would bloom a different color. Pink at one country house, blue at another, purple in a third garden barely a mile away. The plants were genetically identical. The soil beneath them was different. Victorian gardeners began obsessively experimenting, recording in notebooks which compost mixtures produced which colors. By the late 1800s, English horticultural societies were publishing detailed observations on what they called the soil sympathy of the hydrangea. They had figured out the trick by direct observation 2 full generations before anyone understood the underlying chemistry. Before I go any further, I need to stop and tell you something important. This video is just the first layer of what the garden industry has spent decades burying. I spent months compiling every forgotten gardening technique, every suppressed home remedy, every cheap natural method into one complete archive. All of it is inside the complete Forbidden Gardening Vault. The exact hydrangea color recipes for blue, pink, purple, and lavender, the banana peel rose food formula, the Epsom salt schedule, the vinegar and saltweed killer recipe, the aspirin and milk tomato formula, the lawn tonic recipe your grandfather mixed in his garage, the diatomaceous earth method that ends pests without harming bees. Over 12 complete garden guides in one vault, every page built for immediate use this weekend in your own yard. The link is in the description. But stay here because the chemistry behind this color change makes every nursery markup on a hydrangea look completely indefensible. Here's what actually happens at the molecular level when a hydrangea bloom changes color. The pigment inside hydrangea petals is a compound called delphinidin, an anthocyanin in the same chemical family as the pigments in red wine and blueberries. Delphinidin on its own is naturally pink, but when delphinidin combines with aluminum ions inside the plant tissue, it forms a complex that absorbs light differently and reflects deep blue. The whole question of color comes down to one simple variable. Can the plant absorb aluminum from the soil? The answer depends entirely on soil pH. In acidic soil with a pH of 5.5 or lower, aluminum ions are soluble and freely available. The roots pull aluminum into the plant, the aluminum binds to delphinidin in the petals, and the blooms turn blue. In alkaline soil with a pH of 6.5 or higher, aluminum ions form tight chemical bonds with soil particles and become unavailable to the plant. No aluminum reaches the petals. The delphinidin stays in its pure pink form. In the transitional range between pH 5.5 and 6.5, partial aluminum availability produces purple, lavender, and mauve. This means that you control the color of any hydrangea by controlling soil pH. Lower the pH, the blooms turn blue. Raise the pH, the blooms turn pink. This is not garden mysticism. It is straightforward inorganic chemistry that any university extension service will confirm in writing. The nursery selling you the $89 blue hydrangea simply added aluminum sulfate to the potting soil before they put the plant on the shelf. You can do the exact same thing in your own yard for under $1 or even better, with 2 kitchen scraps that cost nothing. If you've made it this far, you already understand more about hydrangea chemistry than 90% of the garden centers selling them. Subscribe and share this with someone still paying $80 for a colored shrub they could grow themselves for free. Now stay with me, because the money trail behind this suppression is the real story. You cannot patent soil pH. You cannot trademark coffee grounds, oak leaves, pine needles, or wood ash. You cannot build a billion-dollar shrub industry on the truth that the same plant produces every color the customer ever wants when fed 2 free things from the kitchen. The economic engine of the ornamental shrub industry depends on one psychological lever. The homeowner must believe that flower color is a genetic trait fixed at the nursery, and that switching from pink to blue requires a new plant. Every garden center display reinforces this belief. Pink hydrangeas in pink pots, blue hydrangeas in blue pots, white ones for the gardener who can't decide. The pricing model assumes you will replace the entire plant when the color disappoints you. A homeowner who learns that pH controls color is a homeowner who never buys a second hydrangea again. I need to be honest with you about the real limits of this technique. White hydrangeas, including the popular Annabelle and Limelight cultivars, do not change color regardless of soil chemistry, because they do not produce delphinidin in the first place. Color shifts take time, usually a full growing season for the change to fully appear in new blooms, and old blooms already on the plant will not change. Aluminum must actually be present in your soil, and many container-grown hydrangeas arrive with very little, which is why a small amount of aluminum sulfate is sometimes needed alongside the pH adjustment. And finally, the big leaf hydrangea, Hydrangea macrophylla, is the variety most responsive to pH. Some other species respond less dramatically. Here's exactly how to do it in your own yard. To turn a pink hydrangea blue, lower the soil pH by working acidic kitchen scraps into the soil around the base of the plant every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the growing season. Used coffee grounds are the most effective and easiest to source. Spent black tea bags work well too. Pine needles, oak leaves, and shredded peat moss all push the pH downward. Sprinkle a layer 1 to 2 inches thick around the drip line of the plant and gently work it into the top inch of soil. For faster results, dissolve 1 tablespoon of aluminum sulfate in 1 gallon of water and drench the soil 3 times during the spring, in March, April, and May. Avoid getting the solution on the leaves. To turn a blue hydrangea pink, raise the soil pH by adding alkaline materials. Crushed eggshells work slowly but reliably. Wood ash from a fireplace or fire pit raises pH faster, applied at half a cup per plant, 2 to 3 times across the growing season. Garden lime is the fastest reliable option, applied at 1 cup per mature bush in early spring. Avoid using anything containing aluminum if you want pink blooms. A homesteader in coastal Maine documented her hydrangea hedge online across 4 full seasons. Her hedge was originally a mix of pinks, blues, and purples that had drifted into a muddy uniform mauve over the years. She separated the bushes by intent, treating the front row with coffee grounds and pine needles for blue, and the back row with eggshells and wood ash for pink. By the 3rd summer, her hedge bloomed a perfect ombre from deep ocean blue at one end through purple in the middle to soft rose at the other end. Her total annual cost was $0. This knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It died because it worked too well on the most popular flowering shrub in America, in a way that completely eliminated the industry's most profitable replacement cycle. Peter Collinson grew the first European hydrangea in 1746. Linnaeus named it in 1753. Victorian gardeners cracked the soil sympathy code by direct observation in the 1800s. Modern chemistry confirmed every detail in laboratories across the 20th century. And then one generation of homeowners stopped tracking the color of their own soil because a glossy nursery catalog told them every shade required a different plant tag and a different price. The coffee grounds are still in your kitchen. The oak leaves are still on your lawn. The eggshells are still in your trash. The chemistry has not changed in 200 years. The only thing that changed is who convinced you that color came from a nursery instead of from the soil under your feet. If this vault opened something for you today, subscribe and share this video. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is going to make every greenhouse and seed catalog in your county suddenly very nervous about their winter vegetable sales.